Hello, fellow mystery readers. Corinne Smith here with suggestions of mystery series that feature librarians as their main characters. Now, most of these books are ones that were written in the late 1990s, early 2000s, when I was reading many more mysteries than I do now. And yet, not only are these titles still available, and not only do they make for wonderful reading, but some of these series are still in progress. Yes. So, there are many mystery series featuring librarians as their main characters, just as there are many series that feature owners of independent bookstores. Why is this? Well, first of all, some librarians and some booksellers are writers, and they want to share what they know and add mysteries into their daily lives. And secondly, it's a great marketing strategy, isn't it? Because as a reader, if you're addicted to reading books in series, then you probably patronize libraries and bookstores, and you probably like the people who work in these places, and maybe you understand all the aspects of their operations, maybe you don't, maybe you want to know more, maybe you're curious about what goes on behind the scenes. So there you go. The authors and the publishers have already snagged you and already grabbed your interest. And as a former librarian myself, and now as the manager of an independent bookstore, I can tell you that both places do lend themselves to having mysterious incidents happen. Now, I like geography, so we're going to start in the Northeast and then move around the United States, because all of these mysteries take place in the United States. First up, let's go to central New York, to upstate New York as they say, to the town of Seneca Falls in the Finger Lakes region. If Seneca Falls sounds familiar to you, it might be because it's known as the birthplace of women's rights, due to the efforts of Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton back in the 1800s. The Glynis Tryon Mysteries, also called the Seneca Falls Historical Mysteries, were written by Miriam Grace Monfredo. There are 6 of them in this finished series. The first one is Seneca Falls Inheritance, and the 6th one is Must the Maiden Die? This first one takes place in the year 1848. The last one takes place in the early days of 1861, just as the Civil War was beginning. Glynis Tryon is the town librarian. She's known for being friendly and smart and savvy. Colin Stewart is the local constable, and at times he asks Glynis for help in solving local murders. Because she knows the people, she knows the town, she knows the territory. The text is written in third person, so sometimes we get to see action that is not necessarily centered around Glynis herself. These books are written in a little more formal form than the usual paperback cozy mysteries. And again, it's historical fiction as well as being a mystery series. So not only do you get a good mystery to solve, but you also learn how life was, especially for women, in the mid-1800s. And yes, sometimes real-life historical people show up, like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. These are the Glynis Tryon or Seneca Falls Historical Mysteries by Miriam Grace Monfredo. Moving to the Midwest and to the northwest edge of the Michigan Mitten, we have the Bookmobile Cat Mysteries by Laurie. So wait a minute, books and cats? Be still, my heart. This series is set in the fictional town of Chilson, Michigan. If you pay attention to the geographical references that are mentioned here, you can figure out that Chilson must be south of Charleroi, maybe as far south as Elk Rapids, but not as far south as Traverse City, okay? And there is, according to the atlas, a small town of Chilson, Michigan, but it's closer to Detroit, and it doesn't have anything to do with these stories. So this is in that part of Michigan. So, in Chilson, Minnie Hamilton is the assistant director of the Chilson District Library. And since she is in charge of outreach services, she is also the driver of the Bookmobile, the new Bookmobile. And so she drives all around the region throughout the year in all kinds of weather for northwestern Michigan. Minnie is a seasoned librarian, but she's new to staffing and driving the bookmobile, and she is very new at being a cat owner. Eddie the cat found her, and he quickly found the bookmobile. So there you go. The duo gets to meet a lot of people as they travel around. They get to check out what's going on in the neighborhoods. On occasion, they may come upon a mystery or a dead body or two. And whenever something untoward like that happens, Minnie does her best to try to figure out what's going on. Sometimes she gets advice from her best friend Kirsten, who runs the Three Seasons restaurant. And on the back here it says, initially, Minnie is ready to let the police handle this case, but Eddie seems to smell a rat. Together they'll work to find the killer, because a good librarian always knows when justice is overdue. Isn't this fun? Okay, as I record this video, there are 10 books in this series. Lending a Paw is the first one. This is the large print edition that I borrowed from a library. The 10th one is The Crime That Binds. Pay attention, because there's an 11th book coming out called A Troubling Tale, T-A-I-L, that will be coming out in August of 2023. These are fun series, especially if you know Northern Michigan, and if you don't, well, you're going to learn. So that's the Bookmobile Cat Mysteries by Laurie Cass. A lot of fun. Well, not for the people who get off in them, but you know what I mean. Okay, moving slightly more west to Minnesota, we have the Murder by Month Mysteries by Jess Laurie. You know, back in the day, when these series were just getting started, we had Sue Grafton's Kinsey Milhone Mysteries, which followed the alphabet. You know, A is for alibi, B is for burglar, C is for corpse, and so on. And then we soon had Janet Ivanovich doing the numbers thing, right? Following the numbers, 1 for the money, 2 for the dough, and she kept on going, and she's still going. At least Sue made it all the way to Y is for yesterday. So there are patterns you can follow when you start out as an author on a mystery series. So Jess Laurie decided to do a Murder by Month mystery series. Well, it sounds good to me. You only have to do 12 instead of 26, or terms of numbers, infinity. Okay? So from the author's point of view, it sounds pretty good. So we have the Murder by Month Mysteries by Jess Laurie, featuring Mira James as the main character. That's M-I-R-A. Now, when I first started reading these mysteries in my head, I read them to myself. I interpreted her name as Myra, but I've asked Jess. I've met her a couple of times. It's Mira, okay? Mira James. And so the first book in the series is not January. It's May Day, all right? And so they follow in order, month by month. And so the last one in the series is April Fools, okay? These are set in the real-life Minnesota town of Battle Lake. It's a small town. Mira has come to Battle Lake initially to house sit for a friend for a lengthy period of time. But she needs a job here. She needs to make a couple of bucks, and she needs something to do. So she applied for the assistant librarian position at the public library, and she got it, probably because she majored in English in college. She'd never been a librarian before, but Mira eases into the job. She eases into finding a boyfriend pretty quick. Seems to be what she likes to do. And she also eases into finding dead bodies, and sometimes those last two actually collide. As the action progresses, Mira eventually gains a partner in her crime solving, an older woman named Mrs. Burns. And in their informal investigations, they often run into the chief of police, Gary Won't, or Won't, W-O-H-N-T. And Mira's nemesis in all of these actions is the mayor of Battle Lake, a platinum blonde woman named Kenny Rogers, K-E-N-N-I-E, who, for some reason, even though she's a native of Minnesota and of Battle Lake, speaks with a southern accent. So, a lot of cool characters in these books. There are 12 books in the series, obviously. I have a bunch of them because, like I said, I've met Jess, and I've got at least one signed copy. I don't have all 12. But there you go. Now, Jess has since moved on to writing thrillers, standalones, and a couple of small series. And so these Murder by Month mysteries have been re-released, repackaged with different covers, and their title has technically changed to a Murder by Month rom-com mystery, okay, to differentiate from the thrillers that she's now writing, okay? But Jess has also chosen to return to Battle Lake with the beginning of a new additional series within the series called a novella series. A novella series, okay? It's a Murder by Month rom-com mystery novella, and the first one is Monday is Murder. So we can anticipate that there might eventually be 7 of these, right? Okay. In the back of this one, and it is kind of skinny, this one takes place in the December of that year. So you may want to pair it with the December book. The teaser at the end of this book says that there is another one coming called Tuesday is Terror with no release date planned. So we assume eventually, in addition to those 12, there will be 7 more. Very cool. Thank you, Jess, for everything. That's the Murder by Month mystery series by Jess Laurie. All right. Moving across the country, we get to California. And we get to the Bibliophile Mysteries by Kate Carlisle. And here, Brooklyn Wainwright works as a freelance bookbinder and book conservator in San Francisco. She's all about fixing damaged books, valuable books that take a practiced hand in fixing. Brooklyn's parents became part of a Sonoma Valley commune back in the 1970s, and they still manage a winery there. So she has an interesting family history and an ongoing and unique family situation. Brooklyn's best friend is Robin Tully. Her nemesis, at least at the beginning, is Minka LaBouffe. And the security expert that she keeps running into is named Derek Stone. If you don't think the world of valuable books can be a cutthroat one, literally, then you may be in for some surprises here. And whenever anything untoward happens, of course, Brooklyn tries to figure out what's going on. You don't have to know how to fix books yourself, but you will certainly learn some of the processes involved and some of the tools and the materials that she needs to help fix books. It sure does help to understand that we appreciate beautiful and antique books, and sometimes they are in need of help. And to understand that under certain circumstances, they could literally be to die for. There are 16 books in this series. The first one is Homicide in hardcover. The newest one is The Paper Caper. Get the title there, The Paper Caper. A 17th book called The 12 Books of Christmas is set to come out in September 2023. Most of these books are set in California, and specifically in San Francisco and in that region. But sometimes Brooklyn has to travel to book festivals in other places. So those books go along, and we go along to those other places. These books are told in first person. The Bibliophile Mysteries. Okay? Maybe I didn't mention, I think those other 2 series, the Michigan and the Minnesota ones, are also told in first person. Yes. Yes. Told in first person? Yes. Both of them are. I kind of like when they're told in first person, but third person's okay too. Okay, so we're on the West Coast, and at last we come to my all-time favorite series and my all-time favorite character with the Miss Zukas Mysteries by Joe Doreski. There are 11 books in this finished series, mostly from the 1990s. The first one is Miss Zukas and the Library Murders, and the last one is called Farewell, Miss Zukas. I used to have all of these, but I gave them away a couple of years ago. I don't know why, because when I came back and reread this, I'm going to have to read the whole series again. Nevertheless, I still love Miss Zukas. Wilhelmina Helma Zukas, and she is a reference librarian, or the reference librarian, for the Bellhaven Public Library in Bellhaven, Washington. Now, Is Belhaven a stand-in for the real-life Bellingham? I don't know. I've never been to Washington or to Bellingham, so maybe somebody out there knows and can make the connection. Anyway, doesn't matter. Helma Zukas is in her 30s, but she has the personality and the behaviors of one of those stereotypical librarians from long ago. And she's in many ways old-fashioned and neat and tidy, one of those stereotypical librarians. It's great. It's great. Her best friend is Ruth Winthrop, who is her polar opposite. Ruth Winthrop is an artist and a flamboyant dresser and a messmaker in many ways. And whenever something untoward happens, like a dead body is found in the library, Helma tries to figure out what's going on. Ruth often accompanies her. Chaos may ensue. They usually do run into the local police chief, Wayne Gallant, who is actually a nice guy for an authority figure, and he truly appreciates Helma's powers of observation, and he does listen to her most of the time. Okay, if you've ever worked in any kind of library, you may very well recognize the characters that show up in this book on the staff, some of the patrons too, and you may recognize the kind of issues that they debate over, like whether or not to digitize the card catalog. Yes, that's the time period that we're starting out with here. So it's just a lot of fun. Miss Zukas Mysteries by Joe Dureski. Oh, I love Miss Zukas. So those are the 5 series that are my favorites in this genre, and they were the ones that I wanted to focus on today. But when I told my librarian friend Sharon about these 5 series, she said, oh, well, what about this one? Oh, well, what about this one? So I have added 2 more to this program. I have not read all of the books in these series yet. I've only read the first ones, but I can tell you that I already like them. So, in Connecticut, we have the Library Lovers Mysteries by Jen McKinley. There are currently 13 books in this series, starting with Books Can Be Deceiving, and the 13th one so far is The Plot and the Pendulum. And here we follow Lindsay Norris, who is a relatively new director of the Briar Creek Public Library in Briar Creek, Connecticut. It is a small coastal town with the Thumb Islands right off the coast. And if you pay attention to the geographical references, you can figure out it's somewhere between New Haven and New London, okay? She's got a best friend named Beth, who was already the children's librarian at the library when she got there. These are fun, okay? In Connecticut, Library Lovers Mysteries. And then down in North Carolina, we have the Lighthouse Library Mysteries by Eva Gates, and here Lucy Richardson is the brand new assistant librarian at the Body Island Lighthouse Library, located on the Cape Hatteras National Seashore in the Outer Banks. Yes, this is a real-life, actual lighthouse that has been transformed into a public library, but only through the eyes of Eva Gates, the author, and only in the pages of these books, okay? So, Lucy Richardson is the new assistant librarian, but when you start reading the first book, is she going to be able to keep her job or not? Not sure. She also actually lives on the 4th floor of this lighthouse. Isn't that cool? Oh, this is cool. Okay, so these books are told in first person by Lucy. First one is by Book or by Crook, and there are 9 books in this series. The 9th one is Death by Beach Read, and there's going to be a 10th one coming out in June 2023 called Death Knells and Wedding Bells. So that's the Lighthouse Library Mysteries in North Carolina by Eva Gates. All very cool, all very cool. Okay, so I have listed all of the titles in order for each series in the summary below, because sometimes it's hard to figure out what the books are in order, okay? Again, as always, I recommend you read them in order. They'll make more sense that way, and you'll get more context that way. And these will all keep you busy for a while, won't they? I have given you a lot of options here. Have you read any of these? Leave your comments below. Are you a Miss Zukas fan like I am? Let me know. Now, admittedly, as I was putting this piece together, I realized there's no diversity here, okay? There's no diversity here. So if you know of diverse mystery series featuring librarians, please let me know. Diversity in any way that you can define it. How about following a male librarian character? There are some male library directors and catalogers and other things in some of these books that you'll meet. But why don't we go against type? Why don't we go against the stereotype of librarians too? Does somebody have to write more series that do this, that feature diversity or against type or whatever? Are you a writer? You could do that, right? Anyway, lots of cool options for you, and you can even go back in time with the Seneca Falls Mysteries and find out what's happening in Seneca Falls, New York in the 1880s. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm going to read the rest of those 2 series at the end there. I only read the first books just so I could see and get an impression, and I already know that I like them. So, if you read them, leave comments below. If you know of more or know of diverse ones, please let me know. I'd love to feature them. I'd love to read them. And I think we all would, right? Okay. Enough for today. I'm Corinne Smith. Thanks for watching. Now, go read something, okay?